It was a cold, cloudy afternoon in the heart of the city. People rushed through the busy streets, bundled up in coats, scarves, and gloves to fight off the chill. The wind howled through the alleys, carrying with it the distant sounds of car horns and bustling crowds. But amid the chaos of the city, there sat an elderly man, quietly perched on a weathered wooden bench. His coat was old, the fabric worn thin in some places, with patches and frayed edges that hinted at many years of use. His shoes, once polished and sturdy, now bore scuff marks from countless miles walked. And his hat, tilted low over his brow, obscured much of his face, casting a shadow over his deep, thoughtful eyes. To most passers-by, he was invisible. Just another elderly man, lost in a sea of faces, blending into the background of the city. But Elijah Harris was anything but ordinary. In his prime, Elijah had been one of the most effective and resourceful agents in the CIA. His assignments had taken him across the globe, from negotiating peace treaties in the Middle East to infiltrating criminal organizations in Eastern Europe. He had saved lives, prevented wars, and gathered intelligence that shaped the course of history. But now, in his twilight years, Elijah sought peace and anonymity. However, fate had a way of disrupting even the quietest lives. Across the street, two young police officers stood near their patrol car. They were new to the force, eager to prove themselves, but that eagerness often came with arrogance. One of them, a tall officer with dark sunglasses, noticed Elijah sitting alone on the bench. "Hey," he nudged his partner, a shorter officer with a buzz cut. "Check out that guy over there." The shorter officer followed his gaze and spotted Elijah. "What about him?" he asked. "Look at that coat," the tall officer said with a smirk. "Looks like it's older than my grandfather." The shorter officer chuckled. "Yeah, and look at those shoes. Think he pulled them out of a dumpster?" They both laughed, finding amusement in the elderly man's appearance. "Come on," the tall officer said, straightening his badge. "Let's go have a little fun." As they crossed the street toward Elijah, the old man remained seated, his hands resting on his knees. He noticed the officers approaching, but he didn't react. Instead, he observed them quietly, noting their body language, their posture, the way they carried themselves. Years of training had taught him to read people in an instant. "Afternoon, sir," the tall officer said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Elijah nodded politely. "Afternoon, officers." The shorter officer eyed Elijah's coat. "That's quite a vintage coat you've got there. Must have seen a lot of winters, huh?" Elijah smiled faintly. "It has, indeed." The tall officer leaned in slightly, his tone mocking. "Where'd you get it? Salvation Army? Or maybe the thrift store down the block?" Elijah met the officer's gaze, his expression calm and composed. "I've had this coat for a long time. It's been with me through many journeys." The officers exchanged a glance, amused by his response. "What kind of journeys?" the shorter officer asked. "A trip to the soup kitchen?" They laughed again, but Elijah remained unfazed. He had encountered men like these before, men who judged others by their appearances, who mistook kindness and humility for weakness. After a moment, Elijah stood up slowly. Despite his age, there was a quiet strength in the way he moved, a sense of purpose and control. The officers stopped laughing as they realized there was something different about this man. Elijah adjusted his coat and stepped closer to the officers. "You know," he said, his voice steady and measured, "it's easy to make assumptions about people. You see an old man in a worn-out coat, and you think you've got him all figured out. But appearances can be deceiving." The tall officer crossed his arms. "Oh yeah? And who are you supposed to be?" Elijah reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. He opened it, revealing an old, faded badge. The officers leaned in, their eyes widening as they read the words etched on the badge, Central Intelligence Agency. Both officers froze. No way, the shorter officer whispered. You were CIA? Elijah nodded. For over 30 years. I've seen things you wouldn't believe. I've been in situations that would make most men crumble. And through it all, this coat has been with me. The tall officer swallowed hard, suddenly feeling very foolish. We didn't mean any disrespect, sir. Elijah gave a small smile. I know you didn't. But let this be a lesson to you. Never judge someone by their appearance. Everyone has a story, some just choose to keep theirs hidden. The officers nodded, their earlier arrogance replaced with humility. Elijah slipped his badge back into his pocket. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have somewhere to be. The officers stepped aside, watching in silence as Elijah walked away, his coat billowing in the wind. As he disappeared into the crowd, the tall officer turned to his partner. Man, we really messed up, didn't we? The shorter officer nodded. Yeah. And I don't think I'll ever look at people the same way again. Elijah Harris continued his quiet life, blending into the background of the city. But every now and then, he would glance at his old coat and smile, remembering the countless stories it carried, stories of bravery, sacrifice, and wisdom. Because in the end, it wasn't the coat that defined him. It was the life he had lived, the lessons he had learned, and the legacy he carried with him. And as he walked through the streets, unnoticed by most, he remained a reminder of a powerful truth: never judge a book by its cover, for some of the greatest stories are hidden beneath the surface. Life is full of unexpected twists and hidden truths. The next time you see someone who seems ordinary, remember that they might have a story that could change your entire perspective. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. And don't forget to leave a comment below, we'd love to hear your thoughts.